There we go. Our next speaker is also joining us from the US. Jason, it's fantastic to have you with us. I know we got off to a little bit of a rocky start, and I'm not sure if I should share the story or if you should share it. But Jason is one of many people in the community that have really impressed us. And one of the things that impressed me the most was once he got started on the BTC program, he was above dedication. And Jason, when we caught up a couple of weeks ago, you had your stories from some of the work you're doing now in the US and in New York. I just said, we have to get Jason in the program. We got to get his story, and we got to get others a chance to learn. So, Jason, welcome. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you so much. I do have to say, putting me right at the Rita is like, I don't know, closing for Bono and YouTube. So I will try to keep it interesting.
I'm just the warm-up act, Jason. You know how to
yeah, keep that up, sure. But it really is a privilege to get some time with you guys. It's a privilege to talk about transformation and experimentation and offer some kind of in the trenches perspectives of how we can kind of incent transformation, incent a different vision of the future for organizations, and make it okay for leaders to try new things, and make it okay for leaders potentially even to make hard pivots on even very, very kind of sensitive topics. And I think that's the topic that we're going to cover today. Why don't I go ahead and share the presentation if you guys are okay with that, and see if all right. So I'm going to walk through an applied case study of some work that we're doing right now with a Fortune 100 firm in the US. And it's a really, I think, a very timely example of how experimentation can be used to evolve your operating model and take a data-driven approach to what great should look like. And there's also a little political dynamic in the middle of this that I suspect everyone can probably relate to. So we're going to talk about the return to office strategy. It's been touched on a bit, Bloomberg article. Thank you for teeing this up this morning. I'm working with a Fortune 100 company on their return to office strategy for about 15,000 of their team members. And I'll just walk you through how we've taken an experimentation approach to this, positioned this with the CEO, C-suite, and the board, and just beginning to kick off these experiments. So just context, right? So a large group, about 25% of the workforce for this client. I have kind of advisory scope for today. This discussion of what does hybrid work look like in 2021 and beyond. What happens when leadership wants folks in the office? I used to work for Jamie Dimon. One of the reasons I no longer work at JPMorgan Chase is I used to work for Jamie Dimon. And we know what that leadership style is like. It delivers specific results, but not the specific results that every company may want to emulate, especially moving forward. This discussion of what are the implications of hybrid work, remote work to team productivity, to culture, to engagement. How about attrition risk, right? It's going to be really interesting to see as Jamie pounds the desk, right? What type of, how many people are going to choose to walk, right? And that may be okay for JPMorgan Chase, right? They have a big enough brand, and they, frankly, are strong enough companies that might be okay for them. It certainly won't be okay for most of our clients, right? So let's just jump into, the context. This is a view of where I found myself about a month ago, between the proverbial rock and a hard place. I saw the emails bouncing back and forth between the CIO and the head of strategy for the firm. Hey, we've got to get our arms around this return to office where everyone is flat out. We don't have any capacity. Who could lead this effort? And at the very end, at the bottom, there was a line from from the C-suite that says, "Hey, what about giving it to Jason?" And I said ... And I felt like responding, "What about not?" All right, this felt like one of those things there might be a little bit of a no-win situation, because at the time, the CEO came in to an all leaders meeting, thousands and thousands of managers on a call, and said, hey, good news, things are coming back to normal. I want people back in the office on July 6th. And when I mean back in the office, I mean workers should be in the office more than out. The feedback bottoms up was relatively clear. I won't use the three-letter acronym that they used, but essentially they said, hey, come on, we've grown used to working remotely, and we'd really like to choose when and how and where we work moving forward. And there was a subtext that says, hey, if you force us back into the office, we're simply going to start looking for other options. And this is particularly a challenging risk for this organization, because they're in a smaller US market, big brand, but headquartered in a smaller US market. And now that so many companies are working virtually, they're seeing a ton of attrition risk from New York and San Francisco. These guys are coming in offering 50% raises for similar roles, and they're already seeing lots of attrition risk across the organization. So this is kind of where I found myself as I engaged in this discussion. CEO saying, I couldn't be clearer, I want people in the office. Workers going, yeah, not so much. So the question is, how do you solve it? And I think the answer is very carefully. Let me walk you through the approach that we took. It was very much an experimentation approach to what the future of work should likely look like. So what did we propose? Rather than saying no or yes or we believe, we simply said, let's take an experiment-driven approach to it, and let's let the data tell us what this should look like. So can we get some grace for a 90 to 120-day set of experiments? And let's just test it. Let's have a set of teams deliver on premises. Let's have some deliver in a couple of different hybrid modes. One of those hybrid mode is everybody on the team comes in the same day, and other days they're all working remotely. So this is a hybrid mode, but it's a mono hybrid mode on any given day. Everybody's working in the same mode. The other hybrid mode that we wanted to test was people working in different cities, some people on campus, some people off. Our suspicion, strong suspicion, is that will likely be the weakest performing delivery mode. And then the third is, hey, great, the other 90% plus of our teams continue working remotely, and we'll have a focus on tracking productivity, quality, delivery predictability, engagement, management effectiveness, general happiness, right? All of the stuff that's really indicative of successful innovation, successful delivery, and long-term, kind of strong foundation. So there's some lessons learned, right? First, listen to all your stakeholders as you consider significant business model and policy changes. I honestly think that in this scenario, the CEO, who's been missing working in the office and has been at this company for 30 plus years, I think he came in expecting everybody to be chomping at the bit to come into the office. And he didn't socialize this policy as much as potentially he could have. Second, acknowledge that there are different opinions and different perspectives. And oftentimes those differing perspectives are driven by very solid reasons, and sometimes really different perspectives on business value. Third, make it okay to challenge the status quo. This isn't a discussion of you're right, I'm wrong, people just don't get it. It is this discussion of, hey, there are a lot of different ways to approach this. How could we find out the best approach for our culture, our company, and what we're trying to achieve? Fourth, really important, have the instrumentation in place to measure your core performance indicators. This is a tough one. It requires a lot of focus around, are we clear on what the key indicators of current and long-term success are? Do we have good insights? Do we have good data quality? And can we answer those foundational questions that the board, the C-suite, our investors on the street are going to be asking of our company? And then really limit, and I guess finally, limit the emotional and political dimensions. We all have our perspectives. All opinions are welcome. But ultimately, if you let the data inform your path forward and structure strong experiments that are really focused on your target business outcomes, a lot of the angst and pressure and some of the distortions that can take place in large organizations really get pushed to the side, and we get a lot of clarity. So the results, we don't know yet. We're going to kick off the experiments. I'm in the process of figuring out which teams are going to be engaged. We're going to have to structure some incentives, I think, to get some of the teams to come in and deliver on site. We're going to be kicking off the experiments in August or September. My offer here is, if you want to hear about what the data says, shoot me an email. We'll share this. I love the community aspect of the work that we're doing in this group, and I'd love to share. I will abstract it from the specific client, but I'd love to share the results and get some feedback from folks around what did we learn, what could we have done better, how do we structure the experiments, and ultimately, what were some of the longer-term potential implications of this work? Because this is a solution in response to a targeted challenge with much broader implications to the way this company runs its business. So before I wrap, I want to touch on two things. One, the broader implication of experimentation for your business in general. Your business model. I love, Rita's work has been very, very influential in founding my practice and our company, and the way that we approach it. This discussion about snow melting at the edge and really getting on top of innovation and business model and evolving customer preference trends to evolve your business model and really chart out what the next leg of growth is going to be for your organization. Second, your business strategy. This discussion of how do you build adaptability, how do you build responsiveness, how do you build agility into your strategy and your delivery model over time is, I think, going to be one of the key differentiators of business success in the next decade. Third, your product strategy. Ideally, product is an extension of business model. Your core strategy, your customer insights result in awesome products that customers love, that build deep loyalty until the next round of innovation hits. And you're either the one driving that innovation, or that brand and customer relationship is strong enough that it gives you a chance to catch up. Last but not least, I'd like to just really acknowledge the role that BTC, Christian, and the organization have played in our company's growth. So we're a very young company, about a year and a half old. When I engaged with Christian a year ago, we had a robust practice of 2 to 3 consultants. A year later, we've grown about 8x, and probably going to be a little higher by the end of the year. And I think a lot of that growth has I know that a lot of that growth has been shaped by the work that we did together in the BTC work. That ability to engage leaders on their transformational journey, frame that discussion about what's your vision of the company, not just what do you do today, but what are the core kind of jobs to be done of your clients? What's your competitive arena? How are you evolving very intentionally as an organization? What's your strategic intent? And then how do we make sure that you have the core capabilities to make that journey with pace, with quality, with predictability in a really economically positive way? And finally, that one of our big focuses, the last point, is how do we enable increased agility across our clients' core capabilities? Because it's not a question of, is there going to be disruption? The question is going to be, how soon is it hitting your organization? How rapid are those disruptions going to take place? And how agile are you in evolving your business model for success? So Chris, thank you for the mentorship. Thank you for the exposure to a lot of these ideas. Thank you for the access to the tools. They made a really significant difference in helping our company grow. And Rita, I'm looking forward to reaching out and leveraging the innovation work that you guys just outlined. I think it's going to open up another area of the innovation work that we've been actively working to engage our customers on. I think it's going to give us a structured way to have that conversation and have a discussion about what's the roadmap moving forward. So timing couldn't be better. So I'm going to stop talking at you guys. I'd love to field some questions and make them tough, because we're presenting this stuff to the board in the next, let's see, 4 to 6 weeks. And so, feel free to kick the tires on this discussion about experimentation, even whether it's return to office, hybrid, or broader kind of strategic discussions.
So we have a couple of questions, Jason, coming up in the chat. Do you want to just grab them out of the chat yourself, or you want me to read them out loud?
Why don't you read them out loud? I think it's a little easier for everyone to grab them too.
So the first question comes from Scott, currently stuck in Italy. Have you thought about how seniority might impact willingness to return to the office?
I have lots of thoughts on it. I think they're a little anecdotal. I think it's pretty personality driven. Look, organizations are structured to cater for seniority, right? It's nice to have someone sitting outside your office who says, "Hey, do you need lunch today?" Right? What can I help you with today? What can I schedule for you? Right? And there's this sense of, most of us who have been leaders for some time have a little sense of comfort when I can look outside and I can see people actively banging away at the problems and our roadmap. So I think a lot of folks who are a little more senior, they often also are a little economically kind of cocooned from some of the challenges that some of the other folks face. I think they're like chomping at the bit. They're really excited to come back to the office. As a whole, there are also plenty of exceptions to that rule. I think folks in the kind of rank and file are still wrestling with childcare challenges. They're wrestling with education challenges during the school year. They're also seeing that, hey, you take an hour to 2 to even 3 hours of my day and give it back to me, I can get more work done and I can have more work-life balance. And with virtual collaboration, I can generally do most everything that I needed to do in the past, right? So I don't know, I think there are some kind of overarching themes by seniority, but I think this discussion of what's the nature of work moving forward, I think it's changed pretty fundamentally. And I think those organizations that embrace that, look to enable virtual collaboration. One of the dimensions I didn't talk about was my first business trip was a week and a half ago back to campus. So look at, hey, if 50% of our folks are going to be working virtually every day, we have a big opportunity with our real estate space to make the collaboration experience within the office much more profound. Now we're not talking about population density, we're talking about the impact. And I want to create an environment where people get really excited and look forward to coming into the office. So what could that look like moving forward? And if we could reduce our real estate footprint, could we fund that transformation kind of at least break-even point or even net positive kind of investment from a productivity perspective? So. Sorry, went on a little bit. This is a topic I'm pretty passionate about.
Well, Jason, you actually answered one of the questions that came up around real estate. But what about how do you choose the teams for the experiments?
Very carefully, right? That's when you better have some good relationships. So we're looking at how to, every experiment is fundamentally driven by how do you compose a good experiment group that has the right features that you want to test? All right, so we're looking at geographic distribution, we're looking at line of business distribution, we're looking at team type. We're excluding some teams that we're actively enabling right now with some extra coaching because we didn't want to skew the results. So, I think the first cut is from a statistical perspective, how would we want to structure this to get the best findings that we can? Next, there is an exception process in place for people who don't feel comfortable coming back to the office. So, we're honoring that secondly. Third, we're asking for volunteers first, right? You always want an opt-in model on this type of stuff wherever possible. And then fourth, we're going to look at some incentives if we need to, if we're struggling to come up with the right, population and the right representation.
Super. Jason, we have multiple questions for you in the chat. I'm gonna invite you to answer those, at your own pace. And also, I mean, for everyone, I would love nothing more than having a running conversation with Rita, Ron, Jason, and others as we proceed during the day, because use this summit and use this chat channel to be having these conversations running on. Jason, we're going to make sure to bring you back at a later time to share the findings. But if there's anything that you can or would like to update us with, as you proceed, please do so, and then we'll keep our eyes fixed on your project here.
I'd love to, and I'd love to encourage folks. I think the broader discussion is this, kind of positioning experimentation of a slice of your business and saying, hey, you're not risking that much. In this case, we were able to walk the CEO back from a very public position and pronouncement, open the opportunity for some change. Now it's up to us to structure the experiments, drive it the right way, and then I think everybody will be open to the results, and it will drive a much better outcome for all.